Billionaire helps homeless mother in rain. Years later, discovers how it changed his entire company. Maxwell Thornton stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office, watching raindrops race down the glass. At 42, he was the epitome of success. CEO of Thornton Industries, a tech giant that had revolutionized smart home technology. His net worth placed him comfortably among the world's billionaires, a fact that both thrilled and isolated him. Maxwell's sharp features and penetrating green eyes gave him an intensity that both attracted and intimidated. His tailored suits and perfectly coiffed dark hair were as much a part of his armor as his intellect and business acumen. Yet beneath this polished exterior lay a man increasingly disconnected from the world around him. His pursuit of success had cost him his marriage, and his relationship with his 10-year-old daughter, Lily, was strained at best. Maxwell's life had become an endless cycle of board meetings, product launches, and solitary nights in his luxurious but empty apartment. On the other side of the city, in a rundown neighborhood far from the gleaming skyscrapers, 35-year-old Sarah Collins huddled under a store awning, trying to shield her 6-year-old son Jamie from the rain. Her once vibrant auburn hair hung limp around her face, and her clothes, though clean, were worn and ill-fitting. Sarah had once been a promising graphic designer, but a series of unfortunate events, a difficult pregnancy, postpartum depression, and a husband who couldn't cope and left, had led her to this moment. Despite her circumstances, Sarah maintained a fierce love for her son and a determination to give him a better life. Jamie, a bright-eyed boy with his mother's red hair and a smattering of freckles, clung to Sarah's hand. Despite their hardships, he had an irrepressible spirit and a curiosity about the world that even homelessness couldn't dampen. Maxwell and Sarah's worlds could not have been further apart. Yet fate, with its penchant for the unexpected, was about to bring these two unlikely individuals crashing into each other's orbits. As Maxwell left his office that evening, his mind preoccupied with the latest product launch, he decided to walk home despite the rain. He told himself it was for exercise, but deep down, he was seeking something to fill the growing emptiness he felt. It was on this rain-soaked journey that he would encounter Sarah and Jamie, a meeting that would set in motion a chain of events that would challenge everything Maxwell thought he knew about success, happiness, and the true meaning of wealth. The rain fell in sheets, turning the city streets into a maze of puddles and reflected neon lights. Maxwell strode purposefully down the sidewalk, his expensive umbrella keeping him dry while others scurried for cover. He was lost in thought, mentally rehearsing his presentation for tomorrow's board meeting, when a small voice cut through his reverie. "Mister, do you have any spare change?" Maxwell stopped short, looking down to see a young boy with vibrant red hair looking up at him expectantly. Behind the child stood a woman, presumably his mother, her face a mixture of embarrassment and desperation. "Jamie, don't bother the man," Sarah said softly, pulling her son back. "I'm sorry, sir. We don't mean to trouble you." Maxwell found himself at a loss for words. In his world of high-stakes business and luxury, such direct encounters with poverty were rare. He fumbled in his pocket, pulling out a crisp $50 bill. "Here," he said, handing it to Sarah. "Get yourself something to eat." Sarah's eyes widened at the amount. "Thank you," she breathed, "but we can't accept this much." "Please," Maxwell insisted, feeling increasingly uncomfortable. "It's nothing, really." As Sarah reluctantly took the money, Jamie tugged at Maxwell's sleeve. "Mister, do you know where we can stay tonight? The shelter is full, and it's really cold out here." The question hit Maxwell like a physical blow. He looked at Sarah, really seeing her for the first time, the exhaustion in her eyes, the way she protectively held Jamie close, the quiet dignity she maintained despite their circumstances. Maxwell began, then stopped. What could he say? That he was sorry? That he hoped things would get better? Empty platitudes seemed insulting in the face of their reality. In that moment of hesitation, a car sped by, hitting a puddle and sending a wave of dirty water over Sarah and Jamie. Sarah quickly shielded Jamie with her body, taking the brunt of the splash. Without thinking, Maxwell stepped forward, using his umbrella to cover them. "Are you all right?" he asked, genuine concern coloring his voice. Sarah nodded, trying to wring out her soaked jacket. "We're used to it," she said with a wry smile that didn't reach her eyes. Maxwell felt a surge of emotion he couldn't quite name. Pity, yes, but also a strange sense of connection. For the first time in years, he was face to face with the harsh realities of life outside his privileged bubble. "Look," he said, making a decision that would change the course of all their lives. "I know this is unusual, but I have a spare apartment not far from here. It's nothing fancy, just a place I keep for out-of-town employees, but it's dry and warm. You're welcome to stay there tonight." Sarah's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "That's very kind, but we couldn't possibly." "Please," Maxwell interrupted. "I promise it's safe. You'll have complete privacy. It's just, I can't in good conscience leave you out here in this weather." Sarah hesitated, looking down at Jamie. The boy was shivering, his clothes soaked through. She knew the risks of trusting a stranger, but the prospect of a warm, dry place for Jamie to sleep was too tempting to refuse. "All right," she said finally. "Thank you." As they walked to the apartment, Maxwell found himself strangely nervous. He was used to commanding boardrooms and making multi-million-dollar deals, but this simple act of kindness felt foreign to him. They arrived at a modest building, nothing like the luxury high-rises Maxwell usually frequented. He led them to a small but clean one-bedroom apartment. "It's not much," he said apologetically, suddenly aware of how sparse it was compared to his usual surroundings. But Sarah's eyes filled with tears as she looked around. "It's perfect," she whispered. "Thank you so much, Mr. Thornton," Maxwell supplied. "Maxwell Thornton, and please, it's the least I could do." As he turned to leave, Jamie called out, "Will we see you again, Mr. Thornton?" Maxwell paused at the door, looking back at the boy and his mother. Something stirred within him, a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. "Yes," he found himself saying. "Yes, I think you will." As Maxwell walked home through the rain, his mind was a whirlwind of thoughts and emotions. He had acted on impulse, something he rarely did in business or in life. But for the first time in a long while, he felt alive. Little did Maxwell know that this chance encounter in the rain was just the beginning. The simple act of offering shelter to a homeless mother and her son would set in motion a series of events that would challenge everything he thought he knew about success, happiness, and the true meaning of wealth. In the days following his encounter with Sarah and Jamie, Maxwell found himself unable to shake the memory of their grateful faces. The experience had opened his eyes to a world he had long ignored, despite his occasional donations to charities. Driven by a mixture of curiosity and a growing sense of responsibility, Maxwell began to research homelessness in his city. What he discovered shocked him to his core. The statistics were staggering. Thousands of people, many of them families with children, living on the streets or in shelters. The causes were complex: job loss, medical bankruptcies, domestic violence, mental health issues. Maxwell, who prided himself on his business acumen and understanding of market trends, was stunned that such a crisis existed right under his nose. As he delved deeper, Maxwell uncovered another troubling fact. His own company, through a series of real estate investments and development projects, had inadvertently contributed to gentrification that had displaced many low-income families. The very technology that had made him rich was making housing unaffordable for many. This revelation hit Maxwell like a punch to the gut. He had always justified his business decisions as necessary for growth and progress. But now, faced with the human cost of those choices, he felt a deep sense of shame and responsibility. Determined to understand more, Maxwell decided to visit Sarah and Jamie at the apartment he had lent them. He dressed down in jeans and a simple shirt, hoping to appear less intimidating. When Sarah opened the door, her surprise was evident. "Mr. Thornton, we weren't expecting you." Maxwell smiled awkwardly. "I hope I'm not intruding. I just wanted to check in, see how you're doing." As he stepped inside, Maxwell was struck by how Sarah had transformed the sparse apartment into a warm, inviting space. Jamie's drawings adorned the walls, and the smell of home cooking filled the air. Over a cup of coffee, Sarah shared her story. She spoke of her dreams of becoming a graphic designer, the complications during her pregnancy that led to crushing medical debt, and the spiral of events that left her and Jamie on the streets. "The hardest part," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper, "is feeling invisible. People look right through you, like you don't exist." Her words struck a chord with Maxwell. How many times had he walked past people on the street, never really seeing them? As they talked, Jamie burst in from school, his face lighting up at the sight of Maxwell. "Mr. Thornton, look what I drew today." He proudly displayed a colorful drawing of a house with a family in front of it. Maxwell felt a lump form in his throat as he realized the house in the drawing was his company's latest smart home model. Something Jamie must have seen on a billboard. In that moment, surrounded by the warmth of this makeshift home, Maxwell had an epiphany. He had spent his life accumulating wealth and creating technology to make homes smarter, but he had lost sight of what truly made a home. As he left the apartment that evening, Maxwell knew he could never go back to his old way of thinking. The world he had glimpsed through Sarah and Jamie's eyes had changed him profoundly. Walking back to his penthouse, Maxwell's mind raced with ideas. He had the resources, the influence, the technological know-how. Surely there was a way to use all of that to address the housing crisis, to make a real difference in people's lives. For the first time in years, Maxwell felt a sense of purpose beyond the next product launch or profit margin. He didn't yet know how, but he was determined to use his wealth and influence to create change. The journey ahead would be challenging, forcing Maxwell to confront uncomfortable truths about himself and the system he had thrived in. But as he looked out over the city skyline, he felt a determination he hadn't experienced in years. The revelation of his inadvertent role in exacerbating homelessness had sparked a desire for redemption and a commitment to true social responsibility. Maxwell sat in his office, staring out at the city's skyline as he grappled with the revelations of the past few days. The contrast between his opulent surroundings and the struggles of Sarah and Jamie weighed heavily on his conscience. After hours of internal debate, he came to a decision that would alter the course of his life and career. He would use his position and resources to make a tangible difference in addressing homelessness and affordable housing. The next morning, Maxwell called an emergency meeting of Thornton Industries' board of directors. As he stood before them, he could see the confusion and concern on their faces. This wasn't the Maxwell Thornton they were used to. The man focused solely on technological innovation and market domination. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice firm with conviction, "I've called you here today because I believe we need to fundamentally change the direction of our company. We have a responsibility, not just to our shareholders, but to the communities we operate in." He went on to outline a bold plan. Thornton Industries would pivot a significant portion of its resources towards developing affordable, smart housing solutions. They would partner with city governments and nonprofit organizations to create sustainable, technology-enhanced homes for low-income families and the homeless. The reaction from the board was immediate and divided. Some members nodded in agreement, seeing the potential for positive PR and long-term benefits. Others were openly skeptical, concerned about the impact on the company's bottom line. One board member, Victoria Hawthorne, was particularly vocal in her opposition. "This is absurd," she sputtered. "We're a tech company, not a charity. Our responsibility is to innovate and maximize profits for our shareholders, not solve social issues." Maxwell stood his ground. "Our current model is unsustainable," he argued. "By addressing this crisis, we're not just doing the right thing morally, we're securing our future. A stable society with fewer people in crisis means more potential customers and a more robust economy overall." The debate raged for hours. In the end, Maxwell managed to secure a narrow majority in favor of his plan, but he knew the real challenges were just beginning. The consequences of Maxwell's decision were far-reaching and immediate. News of the company's new direction spread quickly, generating a flurry of media attention. Some outlets praised the move as a bold step towards corporate social responsibility, while others criticized it as naive and financially irresponsible. The company's stock took an initial hit as wary investors pulled out, concerned about the short-term impact on profits. Maxwell found himself working around the clock, reassuring major shareholders and outlining the long-term benefits of the plan. Internally, the company was in turmoil. Some employees were energized by the new direction, seeing it as a chance to make a real difference. Others, particularly in the sales and marketing departments, were resistant to the changes, worried about their commissions and the company's market position. Maxwell's personal life was affected as well. His daughter Lily, hearing about her father's decision, reached out for the first time in months. "Dad, I saw you on the news," she said during a phone call. "What you're doing? It's really amazing. Can you tell me more about it?" This small olive branch from his daughter gave Maxwell hope that perhaps he could repair more than just the housing crisis. However, not all the personal consequences were positive. Some of Maxwell's wealthy friends distanced themselves, uncomfortable with his new focus on social issues. He found himself excluded from certain social circles and business opportunities. As the weeks passed and the project got underway, Maxwell spent more and more time working with city officials and nonprofit leaders. He worked closely with community representatives, listening to their needs and ideas rather than imposing his own vision. This approach, while more time-consuming, led to solutions that were better tailored to the actual needs of the homeless and low-income families. One afternoon, as Maxwell was leaving a meeting with the mayor, he ran into Sarah and Jamie. The boy's face lit up with recognition. "Mr. Thornton, we saw you on TV. Are you really going to build houses for people like us?" Maxwell nodded, feeling a mix of pride and humility. "We're trying to help, yes, but it's really a team effort. Lots of people are working together to make things better." Sarah, who had been cautious about Maxwell's intentions at first, gave him a genuine smile. "What you're doing, it's going to change lives. Thank you for not forgetting about us." As Maxwell walked away from that encounter, he felt a sense of purpose that had been missing from his life for years. The road ahead would be challenging. He knew there would be setbacks, criticism, and moments of doubt. But seeing the hope in Jamie's eyes and the gratitude in Sarah's smile confirmed that he had made the right decision. He realized that true success wasn't measured in stock prices or market share, but in the positive impact one could have on others' lives. With this new perspective, Maxwell was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that he was finally using his wealth and influence for a greater purpose. As Maxwell immersed himself in the affordable housing project, a secondary plot began to unfold within Thornton Industries. Victoria Hawthorne, the board member who had been most vocal in her opposition to Maxwell's new direction, was not content to simply disagree. She saw Maxwell's shift in priorities as an opportunity to seize control of the company. Victoria began to quietly rally other dissatisfied board members and major shareholders. Her argument was simple: Maxwell's bleeding heart policies were going to run the company into the ground. In clandestine meetings and hushed phone calls, Victoria painted a picture of financial ruin, positioning herself as the only one who could steer Thornton Industries back to its tech-focused, profit-driven ways. Meanwhile, unaware of the brewing corporate coup, Maxwell was facing challenges of his own in implementing his vision for affordable, smart housing. The integration of cutting-edge technology with low-cost construction was proving more difficult than anticipated. Some community activists were skeptical of the company's intentions, fearing that the smart aspect of the homes would be used for surveillance or data collection. To address these concerns, Maxwell decided to partner with a respected nonprofit organization specializing in affordable housing. This decision, while popular among the project's supporters, added significant costs and complexity to the initiative, further fueling Victoria's narrative of financial irresponsibility. As Maxwell worked to balance these competing interests, he found an unexpected ally in his daughter, Lily. Inspired by her father's new direction, Lily had begun interning at the company, specifically in the department overseeing the community housing project. Her youthful idealism and tech-savvy approach brought fresh ideas to the table, such as implementing a community-led app development program to ensure the smart home features truly served residents' needs. Lily's involvement not only helped bridge the gap between the company and the communities they were trying to serve, but also began to heal the rift between father and daughter. Maxwell found himself looking forward to their discussions, rediscovering the joy of connecting with his child. However, this positive development in Maxwell's personal life was offset by growing tensions within the company. Employees were divided, with some embracing the new socially responsible direction and others resenting the impact on their bottom line. The sales department, in particular, was a hotbed of dissent, with rumors circulating about potential layoffs if the company's profits continued to decline. Victoria Hawthorne seized upon this unrest, positioning herself as the champion of the old guard, who wanted to return to the company's tech-focused roots. She began holding informal meetings with key employees, subtly undermining Maxwell's leadership and hinting at the changes she would make if she were in charge. As these corporate machinations unfolded, Maxwell remained largely oblivious, his focus firmly on the housing project. He was making real progress. The first prototype homes were nearing completion, and partnerships with local governments were expanding the project's reach. One of the first families selected to move into a prototype home was Sarah and Jamie. Maxwell took particular pride in this, seeing it as a tangible example of how his new approach could change lives. But as Maxwell celebrated these small victories, storm clouds were gathering. Victoria's coalition was growing stronger, and she was nearly ready to make her move. The company's next board meeting was approaching, and Victoria planned to use it as a platform to challenge Maxwell's leadership directly. The stage was set for a showdown that would determine not just the future of Thornton Industries, but the fate of the entire affordable housing initiative. Maxwell, still unaware of the threat to his position, continued to pour his heart and soul into his work, driven by the belief that he was finally doing something truly meaningful with his wealth and influence. As the secondary plot developed, it became clear that Maxwell's personal journey of redemption and his professional life were on a collision course. The question remained, would his newfound sense of purpose be enough to weather the storm that was about to break? As the weeks turned into months, the relationships between the key players in this unfolding drama began to evolve in complex and unexpected ways. Maxwell's relationship with Sarah and Jamie deepened beyond that of a benefactor. He found himself genuinely invested in their lives, celebrating their successes and offering support during their struggles. He became a regular visitor at their new home, not just to check on the smart technology but to spend time with them. Jamie, in particular, had latched on to Maxwell as a sort of father figure. The boy's natural curiosity and intelligence shone through in their conversations about technology and science. Maxwell found himself looking forward to these interactions, rediscovering the joy of mentoring that he had lost in his years of corporate ladder climbing. One afternoon, as they worked on a science project together, Jamie looked up at Maxwell with serious eyes. "Mr. Thornton," he said, "why are you doing all this for us? You didn't have to." Maxwell was quiet for a moment, considering his answer carefully. "Because, Jamie," he finally replied, "you and your mom helped me see something I had forgotten, that success isn't just about making money, but about making a difference in people's lives." This growing bond with Jamie and Sarah had a profound effect on Maxwell. He found himself smiling more, sleeping better, feeling a sense of purpose he hadn't experienced in years. The stress of navigating corporate politics and balancing budgets was offset by the joy of seeing real positive change happening around him. Meanwhile, Maxwell's relationship with his own daughter Lily was undergoing a transformation of its own. Working together on the housing project had given them a common goal, a shared purpose that bridged the gap years of neglect had created. They began to spend time together outside of work, rebuilding their bond one conversation at a time. During one of their dinner meetings, Lily opened up to her father. "Dad, I used to think you only cared about the company and making more money," she admitted. "But seeing you like this, so passionate about helping others, it's made me see you differently. I'm proud of what you're doing." Maxwell felt a lump in his throat at his daughter's words. "I'm sorry it took me so long to figure it out," he said. "But I'm grateful for this second chance, with the project and with you." However, not all of Maxwell's relationships were improving. His friendship with Victoria Hawthorne, once built on a shared drive for technological innovation, had deteriorated into thinly veiled hostility. Their interactions in the office were tense, filled with passive-aggressive comments and barely concealed disagreements. After a particularly heated exchange over the company's new direction, Victoria cornered Maxwell in the elevator. "You're going to destroy everything we've built," she hissed. "And I won't stand by and watch it happen." Maxwell met her gaze steadily. "The world is changing, Victoria. We need to change with it. What we're doing now, it's not just right, it's necessary for our long-term success." The rift between them widened, setting the stage for the conflict that was brewing behind the scenes. In the community, Maxwell's relationships with the local leaders and residents were evolving as well. Initially skeptical of his intentions, many had come to respect his commitment and his willingness to listen. David Chen, a prominent community activist, had become one of Maxwell's strongest allies. "You've surprised us, Mr. Thornton," David said during a community meeting. "When you first came here talking about smart homes for the homeless, we thought it was just another corporate PR stunt. But you've shown us that you're here for the long haul, and that means something." These words of acceptance and support meant more to Maxwell than any business accolade he'd ever received. As these relationships developed and shifted, Maxwell found himself at the center of a complex web of emotions and expectations. He was no longer just a tech mogul, but a mentor, a friend, a renewed father, and a community partner. Each role brought its own joys and challenges, forcing Maxwell to grow and adapt in ways he never had before. The man who had once measured his worth by the size of his bank account and the number of units sold was learning to value himself by the strength of his relationships and the impact of his actions. It was a profound shift, one that would be tested in the crucible of conflict that lay ahead. As Maxwell navigated these evolving relationships, he was unaware that the biggest test of all was looming on the horizon, one that would force him to choose between his old life and the new path he had chosen. The day of reckoning arrived with the quarterly board meeting. Maxwell entered the boardroom confident in the progress of the affordable housing project, unaware of the storm about to break. As the meeting began, Victoria Hawthorne cleared her throat. "Before we proceed with the agenda, I move to discuss a vote of no confidence in Maxwell Thornton as CEO." A shocked silence fell over the room. Maxwell felt as if the floor had dropped out from under him. He looked around at the faces of the board members, seeing a mix of surprise, sympathy, and in some cases, grim satisfaction. Victoria pressed her advantage. "Over the past months, we've seen our stock price plummet and our market share shrink. All because Mr. Thornton has decided to turn our tech company into a housing charity. This is not what our shareholders invested in, and it's not what Thornton Industries stands for." Maxwell stood, his mind racing. "What we're doing isn't charity," he argued passionately. "It's an investment in our future. We're creating a model for sustainable, ethical tech practices that will set us apart in the long run." The debate raged for hours. Victoria presented financial reports showing the short-term losses the company had incurred. Maxwell countered with projections of long-term growth and stability. Board members took sides, some backing Maxwell's vision, others swayed by Victoria's promises of a return to pure profit-driven tech innovation. As the argument reached a fever pitch, the boardroom door burst open. Lily rushed in, out of breath. "Dad, you need to see this," she said, turning on the large screen at the end of the room. A live news broadcast filled the screen. It showed the neighborhood where Maxwell had been working, but instead of the usual scenes of urban decay, the streets were filled with people. Residents, community leaders, and employees from Thornton Industries were marching together, holding signs that read, "Smart Homes, Smart Hearts, and Tech for All." The reporter on the scene was interviewing David Chen. "This project isn't just about housing," David was saying. "It's about dignity, about using technology to level the playing field. Thornton Industries isn't just building homes, they're building a future where everyone has access to the benefits of innovation." The camera panned to Sarah and Jamie's new home, where Jamie was being interviewed. "Mr. Thornton didn't just give us a house," the boy said, his eyes shining with determination. "He showed us that we matter, that we deserve to be part of the future too." The boardroom was silent as the broadcast continued, showing person after person testifying to the positive changes Maxwell's project had brought about. Jobs created, lives improved, a community revitalized through thoughtful application of technology. Maxwell felt a lump in his throat as he watched. He turned to the board members, many of whom looked stunned by what they were seeing. "This," he said quietly, "this is what real success looks like. This is the future of our company." Victoria sputtered, trying to regain control of the narrative, but it was clear the tide had turned. The board members who had been wavering were now nodding along with Maxwell's words. In that moment, Maxwell realized that the true climax wasn't in the boardroom at all. It was out there, in the community, where real people were fighting for a chance at a better life enabled by technology. He had started this journey thinking he was helping them, but in reality, they had saved him from a life of empty success and moral bankruptcy. As the echoes of the community's support filled the boardroom, Maxwell squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. The vote was about to be called, and with it, the future of not just a company, but a vision for a new way of using technology to improve lives would be decided. In the wake of the dramatic revelation from the community, the atmosphere in the boardroom shifted palpably. The live broadcast had put a human face on the numbers and projections they had been debating, forcing everyone present to confront the real-world impact of their decisions. Maxwell seized this moment to make his final appeal. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board," he began, his voice steady with conviction, "what we've just witnessed is more than a show of support. It's evidence of the tangible change our new direction is creating. Yes, our stock price has taken a hit in the short term, but look at what we're building: a loyal community, a sustainable business model, and a legacy that goes beyond mere financial gain." He paused, looking each board member in the eye. "We have a choice to make today. We can retreat to the safety of our old ways, prioritizing short-term profits over long-term impact. Or we can be brave, to lead the way in showing that technology companies can be a force for good in the world while still remaining profitable and innovative." Victoria, seeing her advantage slipping away, made a last-ditch effort to sway the board. "This is all very touching," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm, "but feelings don't pay dividends. Our shareholders invested in us to create cutting-edge technology and make money, not to solve social issues. If we continue down this path, we'll be bankrupting ourselves in the name of social justice." The room erupted into heated discussion. Some board members sided with Victoria, arguing that the company's primary responsibility was to its shareholders and technological advancement. Others, moved by the community's display of support, began to see the value in Maxwell's vision. As the debate raged on, Maxwell realized that a simple yes or no vote would only deepen the divide. He needed to find a way to bridge the gap between the two sides. Victoria sputtered, trying to regain control of the narrative, but it was clear the tide had turned. The board members who had been wavering were now nodding along with Maxwell's words. In that moment, Maxwell realized that the true climax wasn't in the boardroom at all. It was out there, in the community, where real people were fighting for a chance at a better life enabled by technology. He had started this journey thinking he was helping them, but in reality, they had saved him from a life of empty success and moral bankruptcy. As the echoes of the community's support filled the boardroom, Maxwell squared his shoulders, ready to face whatever came next. The vote was about to be called, and with it, the future of not just a company, but a vision for a new way of using technology to improve lives would be decided. In the wake of the dramatic revelation from the community, the atmosphere in the boardroom shifted palpably. The live broadcast had put a human face on the numbers and projections they had been debating, forcing everyone present to confront the real-world impact of their decisions. Maxwell seized this moment to make his final appeal. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board," he began, his voice steady with conviction, "what we've just witnessed is more than a show of support. It's evidence of the tangible change our new direction is creating. Yes, our stock price has taken a hit in the short term, but look at what we're building: a loyal community, a sustainable business model, and a legacy that goes beyond mere financial gain." He paused, looking each board member in the eye. "We have a choice to make today. We can retreat to the safety of our old ways, prioritizing short-term profits over long-term impact. Or we can be brave, to lead the way in showing that technology companies can be a force for good in the world while still remaining profitable and innovative." Victoria, seeing her advantage slipping away, made a last-ditch effort to sway the board. "This is all very touching," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "But feelings don't pay dividends. Our shareholders invested in us to create cutting-edge technology and make money, not to solve social issues. If we continue down this path, we'll be bankrupting ourselves in the name of social justice." The room erupted into heated discussion. Some board members sided with Victoria, arguing that the company's primary responsibility was to its shareholders and technological advancement. Others, moved by the community's display of support, began to see the value in Maxwell's vision. As the debate raged on, Maxwell realized that a simple yes or no vote would only deepen the divide. He needed to find a way to bridge the gap between the two sides. As he looked out at the faces of his employees and the community members who had come to support him, Maxwell felt the weight of their hopes and expectations. But he also felt a sense of purpose and determination that he hadn't experienced in years. The conflict wasn't fully resolved. The specter of Victoria's opposition and the looming deadline hung over Maxwell's head. But he had won a crucial battle, earning the chance to see his vision through. Now, it was time to turn that vision into reality, to show the world that compassion and cutting-edge technology could not only coexist but thrive together. With a deep breath, Maxwell stepped forward, ready to begin the most challenging and important year of his life. The year following the contentious board meeting marked a turning point not just for Maxwell, but for Thornton Industries as a whole. With the clock ticking on his promise to demonstrate both social impact and financial viability, Maxwell threw himself into the work with renewed vigor and purpose. The first major change came in how the company approached innovation. Rather than viewing social responsibility and technological advancement as separate endeavors, Maxwell began integrating them at every level. He created cross-functional teams, bringing together engineers, community representatives, and business strategists to develop solutions that were both cutting-edge and socially impactful. One of the most successful initiatives was a mentorship program that paired tech experts with aspiring developers from underprivileged communities. This program, spearheaded by Lily, not only fostered innovation, but also created a pipeline of diverse talent for the company. Maxwell also focused on transparent communication, both within the company and with the public. He instituted regular town hall meetings where employees and community members could voice concerns and suggest improvements. This open dialogue led to several breakthrough ideas, including a revolutionary AI-driven energy management system for the smart homes that significantly reduced costs for residents. As the months passed, Thornton Industries began to see tangible results. The affordable smart homes, now equipped with state-of-the-art technology that was both user-friendly and cost-effective, started gaining national attention. Other cities began reaching out, interested in implementing similar projects. Perhaps most significantly, the company's efforts began to attract a new type of investor, those interested in socially responsible tech innovation. This influx of ethical investment allowed Thornton Industries to expand its research and development efforts without compromising its social mission. Halfway through the year, Maxwell called another board meeting. This time, instead of defending his vision, he was able to present concrete results. Profits were up, employee satisfaction had skyrocketed, and the company's reputation had never been stronger. Victoria Hawthorne, who had been waiting for the project to fail, found herself increasingly isolated as other board members rallied behind Maxwell's leadership. The turning point came when a major tech conference invited Maxwell to deliver a keynote speech on the future of ethical tech innovation. As the meeting concluded, the board voted unanimously to fully endorse Maxwell's direction for the company. The one-year trial period was ended early, and Maxwell was given a mandate to expand the socially responsible tech model to other areas of the company's operations. Walking out of the boardroom, Maxwell felt a profound sense of vindication and purpose. He had not only saved his position, but had fundamentally changed the direction of the entire company. As he looked out over the city, he realized that this was just the beginning. The real work, scaling this model, refining it, and truly changing the face of the tech industry, was still ahead. With a renewed sense of purpose, Maxwell set out to take his vision to the next level, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, in merging cutting-edge technology with social responsibility. As the second anniversary of his fateful walk in the rain approached, Maxwell found himself in a moment of quiet reflection. The man who looked back at him from the mirror was markedly different from the profit-driven tech mogul who had once strode through the city streets, oblivious to the struggles around him. The past 2 years had been a crucible, testing his resolve, his leadership, and his values in ways he could never have anticipated. He had faced down corporate opposition, risked his career for his principles, and emerged not just successful, but as a catalyst for industry-wide change. Maxwell's growth was evident in both his professional demeanor and his personal life. The cold, calculating businessman had been replaced by a leader who valued empathy and social impact as much as technological innovation. He spoke with a new kind of authority, his words carrying the weight of someone who had fought hard battles and emerged stronger for it. His relationship with Lily had blossomed into a true partnership. Father and daughter now worked side by side, with Lily bringing fresh ideas and a youthful perspective to the company's initiatives. Their shared purpose had healed old wounds, creating a bond stronger than Maxwell had ever thought possible. "You know, Dad," Lily said during one of their strategy sessions, "I used to think tech was all about the next big gadget or app, but you've shown me it can be so much more. We're actually improving people's lives." Maxwell smiled, feeling a surge of pride not in his own accomplishments but in the woman his daughter had become. "We are," he agreed, "and that's worth more than any market valuation." His newfound perspective had ripple effects beyond his immediate circle. Other tech companies began to take notice of Thornton Industries' success, and Maxwell found himself being invited to speak at conferences and consult with other CEOs about implementing similar models. During one such conference, Maxwell shared the stage with Victoria Hawthorne, who had since left Thornton Industries to start her own venture capital firm. The tension between them was palpable, but there was also a grudging respect. "I still think you're a dreamer, Thornton," Victoria said during a panel discussion. "But I can't argue with your results. You've shown that social responsibility doesn't have to come at the cost of innovation." Maxwell nodded, acknowledging the backhanded compliment. "It's not about being a dreamer, Victoria. It's about understanding that technology doesn't exist in a vacuum. When we use our innovations to lift up communities, everyone benefits, including shareholders." As he left the stage, Maxwell reflected on how far he'd come from the man who once measured success solely in stock prices and market share. He now understood that true leadership wasn't about making the most money, but about making the most difference. Perhaps the most profound change was in Maxwell's sense of purpose. The emptiness that had once gnawed at him, driving him to accumulate more wealth and power, had been filled by a deep sense of fulfillment. He woke up each day excited about the challenges ahead, knowing that his work was making a tangible difference in people's lives. As he prepared for a community meeting later that day, Maxwell thought about Sarah and Jamie, the mother and son whose chance encounter had set this entire journey in motion. Sarah was now a team leader in the company's user experience department, her insights invaluable in making the smart home technology accessible to all. Jamie, showing a prodigious talent for coding, was part of a youth tech program sponsored by Thornton Industries. Looking out over the city he had helped transform, Maxwell felt a deep sense of gratitude. The journey wasn't over. There were still challenges to face, new technologies to develop, and a business model to refine and expand. But for the first time in his life, Maxwell Thornton felt truly, profoundly successful. 5 years after that rainy evening when he first met Sarah and Jamie, Maxwell stood on a stage, addressing a crowd of tech industry leaders, social activists, and politicians. The occasion was the launch of a global initiative for ethical tech innovation, with Thornton Industries leading the charge. As Maxwell spoke about the journey that had brought them to this point, he emphasized the themes that had defined his story: the power of empathy in business, the importance of using technology to bridge societal gaps, and the potential for innovation to be a force for positive change. "We stand here today not because change is easy," he said. his voice strong and clear, but because it is necessary. We've shown that ethical tech isn't just a moral imperative, it's good business. When we use our innovations to lift up communities, we all prosper. Looking out at the diverse faces in the crowd, Maxwell saw the ripple effects of his actions. Former skeptics now championed socially responsible tech. Young entrepreneurs were entering the industry with a sense of purpose beyond profit, and communities once left behind were finding new pathways to prosperity through technology. As he concluded his speech, Maxwell caught sight of Sarah and Jamie in the audience, now integral parts of the Thornton Industries family. Their eyes met, and in that moment, Maxwell was transported back to the rain-soaked street where their journey began. "The work is far from over," he said, "but we've proven that change is possible. Let this be just the beginning of a new era in technology, one where innovation and compassion walk hand in hand." The applause that followed was more than just approval. It was a promise to continue the work Maxwell had started, a commitment to a more equitable and technologically empowered future for all. In that moment, Maxwell knew that his greatest success wasn't measured in dollars or market share, but in the lives he had touched and the change he had inspired. The chance encounter with a homeless mother and her son had not only changed his life, but had set in motion a transformation that would ripple out far beyond one man or one company, shaping the very future of technology and society.